Hi, welcome to the fourth installment of Getting Started with Node and QuickBooks. In this episode, I'm going to be taking a question here from the Intuit developer forums. Somebody's asking about this JSON right here, the sales receipt JSON request. How come it's not working? And the Node QuickBooks, and you can see that the example there is in JSON, and the Node QuickBooks library is fantastic because it's a pure JSON library. Intuit does support the XML data format along with JSON, but recent information has come out from engineers at Intuit that JSON is going to be supported better than XML. And I think even we're seeing new capabilities of API being supported, only supporting JSON. So that's why this library is a great choice, because it's built ground up from JSON, and looks like, again, Intuit's going to be having better support for JSON, or JSON only support for some of the entities. So let's jump into this episode. Let's run this JSON. This is right off the heels of part 3. So watch the end of part 3 or watch part 3 to understand the context of where we're starting here. Okay, so I'm back to the console here, and this is where I left off on part 3 again. And this is a great way to I'm answering this question here, but if you have, you just want to kind of fool around and kind of do some code spiking for the requirements you're having at your organization for QuickBooks integration, this is a great way. You just make a new branch. You can kind of follow this exact format I'm doing here. It may not be a sales receipt, it could be an invoice or something else. This is a great way. You just make a new branch. What I'm going to do too is let's go ahead, and we don't need anything from the example directory any longer. Let's go ahead and make this true. Here's the debug option. I'm in config.js. We got all of our stuff set up we need. Okay, let's also take a look at the test directory. See what's going on here. Now you can see when we run the tests, all of these are being run: the batch, CDC, charge, and the index. So we just want to make a new file here to do the sales receipt test. So I'm just going to call it sales receipt.js, and let's open it up. And let's see how a regular spec or test is run. Now, index.js is where most of the things that are going to be relevant to sending a sales receipt are, because CDC, batch, and charge have to deal, I believe charge has to deal with the payments. API, CDC is the change data. It's how frequently the data changes for two-way seeking, and batch is different. So index.js is where we want to take a look. Let's go all the way down here, actually. Oops, sales, okay. All right, so we can pretty much extract this existing test and make our new request. So, and in general, as you know, the best way to kind of learn a framework or a new library is to go to the tests to get going, get some code going. All right, so to make a new test, we going to need to get this information up here. We're going to get some of the other information like the timeout and the describe statement. Now, I already did this, so let me cut and paste some code into here. Behind the scenes, I cut and pasted, copied some code for this spec. So let me paste it in and go over it a little bit. All right, so here's the setup stuff, basically. You're going to require config. We're going to load in the QuickBooks. We're going to make a variable here, which is the QBO, that initializes the QBO from the config, which is being pumped in here. So that's going to run for each one of our specs. Here I'm putting in the exact code from over here is being put in. I just put it into its own object, SR. It's a little easier to read than some of the specs here are just pumped in right here. The object is, and it's kind of a little tough to read with the callback. And they're just a simple expectations here, and you always need to call done on npm tests. All right, so let's go save and run this. Let me do it over in this window here. And we can do npm test, and we're just going to refer to you pass in the exact file name to just run that file. So let's do that. And since we're in debug mode, so we're going to get an error here. Since we're in debug mode, we get all the header information too. So it's nice to see the whole entire call. Here's what exactly got sent in JSON. Now, as we see, we get the response back. We have an error. And that error was invalid reference ID, line sales item, line detail item ref. All right, now the problem is here. Sales line item, sales item, line detail item ref 61. So yeah, I just took this JSON exactly from the example that was given. Now, of course, this is going to be different. I'm running this against the sandbox, and we don't have an item reference of 61. This is specific to this person's environment. But I can still, figure out, or we still troubleshoot this, because in this particular case of a sales receipt, it can start getting very hairy if you have a transaction like an invoice, which has item refs, it has customer refs. But anyway, this is where the problem is. There is not a 61 on the sandbox. So we're going to have to pump in a item reference from the sandbox, but what value is that? All right, to do that, let's go to the index.js file, the root index.js file, the main library, not the test index.js. And the convention used to find entities is always find, and then it's uppercase. Like in this case, it'd be item. There we go, find items. All right, so in our sales receipt.js, we're going to, let's just copy this. We're going to make a new spec, but this is just to find sandbox items, because we just need to know the right item reference to pump into there. So there we go. Let's do that. And I'm going to, let's put in here also, Mocha has a capability of only running one test. And to do that, use the only syntax. We could also put skip down here, .skip, to skip this test. Because what we're doing here is we're just trying to find the sandbox item references so we can pump into this other test. And it's okay that we're using tests here. See, again, we're just kind of code spiking, but we're using the tests because they have all the information already set up. If you're going to do this from the console or something, you would have to each time pump in the config variable. So we just use this nice little framework here for testing to do little code spikes. And to save time, I'm going to cut and paste the find items code. And there we go. And here's the syntax here. It's a little verbose right here in this line, but it's items.query response. Then you got to do .item again to properly handle this query response for each it. And here we're going to show the ID, the name, and the type. Oops. So let me save and run this spec again. Okay, it should only run the code again for getting the items, and here we are getting a list. And it's only going to give us 20 by default. I forget what the setting for the main library is on how many items we're going to get. But we can pick one from the list here. I believe for a sales receipt, it's going to have to be, let's take something like gardening type and pump in the 6 back to the main spec. And what we can do here is we can just go skip this one because we just were using it for informational purposes. That's all. We even delete it. And so it's instead of 61, let's put in 6. So we can just leave the name here. This doesn't matter. This won't make it fail. This is because we're not creating a new item reference. This is the only one that needs to be right. This is what Intuit QuickBooks is going to use to reference that item, even though it still says 10 pack of group X classes here. What it's going to be is the gardening service from here. So let's go and run this. Now we put it to skip. It's going to go back and run this spec. Should succeed this time. And we do. We have a passing sales receipt. And so that was a problem in this question here is most likely it has something to do with this. Maybe this is not the proper type of item reference. I don't know what it is exactly, but I'll post my results and maybe this will help this user. And I hope it helped you as well to get going a little further and to use actually the nice tests to do, again, these code spikes or do some of these investigations in your code. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for more QuickBooks related articles and screencasts. Thank you for watching.